They say a 911 call is a lifeline, a desperate voice reaching across the darkness, begging to be saved. But what happens when that lifeline doesn't connect to the living, but to something else entirely? Every year, millions of calls flood America's emergency lines. Most are routine, car crashes, break-ins, fires. But buried within those calls are rare, terrifying exceptions. Calls where the voice on the other end doesn't belong. Calls where dispatchers hear things that cannot be explained. Whispers from the dead, cries from the empty, pleas from beyond the grave. Tonight, I'm going to share with you the cases that dispatchers themselves could never forget. The calls where the paranormal crossed into our world, and left behind only questions, fear, and silence. These are the paranormal-linked 911 calls. They can't explain. Story 1. The call from the abandoned house. It began like any other night in the 911 dispatch center. Phones rang, voices crackled, and operators logged reports of drunk drivers, domestic disputes, and routine emergencies. But at 2:13 a.m., a call came through that would change the way one dispatcher thought about reality forever. The call was short, terrifyingly short, and it came from a place where, according to police, no one should have been. The dispatcher, a woman with over 10 years of experience, answered the call as she always did. 911, what's your emergency? For a moment, there was nothing, just static. Then came a sound that was so faint, she almost thought she was imagining it. It wasn't a voice at first. It was a whimper. The quiet, shaky sound of someone struggling to breathe through tears. Hello? The dispatcher asked, her voice steady. This is 911. Do you need help? Finally, a voice broke through. It was a child, a little boy, no older than 7 or 8. Help us, he whispered. Please, they're in the house. The dispatcher sat forward in her chair. Okay, honey, who's in the house with you? There was a long pause, then the boy said something that made her blood run cold. They don't have faces. Immediately, protocol kicked in. The dispatcher began tracing the number. The system returned an address, a house on the edge of town. But this was no ordinary house. It was a 2-story Victorian home that had stood empty for nearly 3 decades. Neighbors had complained for years that it should be torn down, windows shattered, weeds taller than children, doors chained shut by the city. Nobody lived there. Nobody could. Yet, the call was coming from inside. The dispatcher quickly sent officers to the scene, all while keeping the boy on the line. Can you tell me your name? She asked, trying to keep him calm. But the boy didn't answer the question. Instead, she heard him whisper something so soft she had to turn up her headset volume just to catch it. They're coming up the stairs. The dispatcher's eyes darted to the digital map showing the call's location. The officers were still minutes away. Stay quiet, she told the boy. Hide if you can. Don't make a sound until the police get there. Can you do that for me? Yes, he said. His voice was trembling. Then, faintly in the background, she heard it. Footsteps. Heavy, dragging footsteps, like someone, or something, was moving slowly across old wooden floors. Suddenly, the boy gasped. They see me. The dispatcher sat frozen. Who sees you? She demanded. There was a loud crash, wood splintering, maybe a door being kicked open. And then the line went dead. Silence. The dispatcher frantically tried to reconnect, but there was nothing. No dial tone, no signal. Just dead air. When officers arrived, their flashlights swept across the crumbling exterior of the abandoned house. The front door was still locked with a heavy chain. The windows, though broken, were covered with rotting boards. There was no sign anyone had gone inside. The officers eventually forced their way in, guns drawn. Room after room, they found nothing. No child, no intruders. No evidence anyone had been there in years. Yet when they checked with dispatch, the system showed clearly, the call had originated from the upstairs hallway of that house. For weeks, police tried to explain the call. They checked phone company records. No active line had been registered to that house in decades. Cell towers confirmed it, the signal pinged from inside the house itself. The dispatcher, shaken but determined, listened to the call recording over and over again. Each time, she swore she could hear more in the background, faint whispers layered under the boy's voice. Words she couldn't quite make out. But the one thing that haunted her most wasn't the sound. It was the boy's final sentence. They don't have faces. The town had its share of rumors about the house. Some said a family once lived there and mysteriously vanished overnight in the late 1970s. Others claimed squatters who stayed there never lasted more than a few days before fleeing in terror. A few old-timers swore the house was cursed, that shadows moved in the windows long after it had been abandoned. But no one had ever proven anything, until that 911 call. Months later, the dispatcher admitted something she had never told anyone before. After the call ended that night, her headset, still connected to dead air, picked up one last sound. It wasn't the boy's voice, it was something else. A deep, distorted whisper that said just two words, "Found you." She never told the officers. She never put it in her official report. But it was the reason she quit her job only 6 months later. Who was the boy that called 911 from a house with no phone lines? What were the faceless things he claimed were chasing him? And how could a call come from a building chained shut for decades? Some believe the boy was a ghost, replaying the night he died. Others think the house itself is a kind of trap, a place where voices are stolen, then replayed for whoever dares to listen. The call remains one of the most chilling unexplained 911 recordings ever filed. And the abandoned house, it still stands, rotting quietly at the edge of town, waiting for the next call. Story 2, The Woman on the Highway. The call came at 2:37 a.m. Melissa Alvarez, a 911 dispatcher with 5 years on the job, was slouched in her chair, sipping coffee that had long since gone cold. The police station was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you notice every little noise, the hum of the fluorescent lights, the distant ticking of the wall clock, the static crackle of unused lines. She always hated nights like this. Too quiet. She knew from experience that when the quiet broke, it never broke gently. The phone lit up. Line 3. Melissa adjusted her headset and forced her voice steady. 911, what's your emergency? At first, silence. She frowned. Silent calls weren't unusual. Sometimes a child dialed by mistake, sometimes someone in danger couldn't speak. But then she heard it, a faint, trembling breath. He's still here. Melissa straightened instantly. A woman's voice. Weak, ragged. Ma'am, can you tell me your location? Melissa asked. There was a pause. Then, the woman spoke again, her words quivering with terror. No eyes, no face. He's walking in the road. Melissa's stomach sank. She pulled up the caller ID. Location, Highway 46. Her pulse quickened. Everyone in the department knew Highway 46. It stretched for miles through open farmland, desolate and unlit, known for fatal accidents, missing persons, and truckers' campfire stories. Some officers joked it was cursed. Others didn't joke at all. Melissa forced calm into her voice. Ma'am, are you inside your vehicle? Yes. The woman whispered. I locked the doors. Please, send someone. He's outside. Her breath hitched. He's getting closer. Melissa gestured sharply to her supervisor across the room. Trace this call now. The supervisor glanced at the screen, his eyes narrowing. Highway 46 again. Before Melissa could reply, the sound came through the line. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps against glass. Melissa's blood ran cold. She whispered into her headset. Ma'am, stay calm. Do not open your doors. Officers are on their way. The woman sobbed. He's leaning closer. Oh my God, I can see. Static swallowed her words. Then came the scream. It wasn't just loud, it was primal. Raw, jagged terror, so piercing Melissa ripped off her headset. Her supervisor went pale as the sound filled the room. And then, just as suddenly, silence. The call didn't drop. Instead, something new came through. A voice, but not the woman's. Deep, distorted, like stone grinding against stone. Each word deliberate. Let me in. Melissa's heart pounded. She wanted to end the call, but training forced her to stay on the line. The silence stretched. Static hissed. Then, the line went dead. She sat frozen, headset trembling in her hands. Officers were dispatched immediately. It took them 20 minutes to reach the location, mile marker 117, near an old bridge where countless wrecks had been reported. They found the car, a blue sedan, engine still running, hazard lights blinking red against the fog. Driver's side door locked, passenger side locked. No signs of forced entry. No driver. But what made them stop cold were the marks on the window. 3 handprints. Black, oily, smeared across the glass. Not fingerprints, too long, too thin, stretching unnaturally. The prints crumbled into ash when touched, leaving no residue behind. The car belonged to Claire Thompson, 34, a nurse finishing her shift at St. Mary's Hospital. Married, 2 children. Her family insisted she never took Highway 46. In fact, Claire went out of her way to avoid it, even if it added time to her commute. So why had she been there that night? Melissa couldn't sleep after the incident. She listened to the call recording again and again, searching for details. The scream. The knock. That inhuman voice. But then she noticed something beneath the static. A second voice. Almost buried. It was Claire's own voice. But distant, layered over itself. Don't stop, keep driving. Melissa replayed it a dozen times. It wasn't a warning to her. It was Claire talking to herself. Like some fractured version of her was pleading from another place, another reality. Experts dismissed it as distortion. Melissa knew better. Within weeks, reports began to surface. A trucker swore he saw a woman in scrubs standing by the side of Highway 46, waving frantically. He slowed down, but before he could stop, she vanished. A college student driving home said she glimpsed a face in her rearview mirror. A woman's face, mouth wide in a silent scream. When she turned, no one was there. Another driver claimed his radio cut to static near mile marker 117. He swore he heard knocking on his passenger window. When he looked, the glass fogged up from the outside, though his car was moving 60 miles per hour. Police dismissed it all. Melissa didn't. The case consumed her. She dug through archives, desperate for patterns. She found dozens of calls linked to Highway 46, a 1979 call where a man whispered, "Something's walking behind my car," before the line went silent. His abandoned pickup was found the next day. A 1994 report from a woman who claimed a faceless hitchhiker appeared in her back seat. She survived but refused to ever drive again. A 2008 call eerily similar to Claire's, 3 knocks on the glass, followed by static. That driver was never found. Each incident tied to the same stretch of road. Always between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. Melissa's colleagues warned her to stop digging. She didn't listen. She began driving out to the highway at night, sitting with her engine running, phone in hand, waiting. Nothing happened, until one night, weeks later. Her radio snapped into static. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. Silence. Then, knock, knock, knock. Story 3, the call that predicted death. It was 2:17 a.m. when the call came through. The dispatcher on duty, a veteran named Karen, had been working the night shift for nearly 15 years. She'd heard everything: panicked drivers, overdoses, domestic fights, children calling for parents who would never wake up again. But this call was different. The phone rang once, then twice. Karen answered. 911, what's your emergency? At first, nothing, just silence. Then, a voice. Not frantic, not desperate, just clear. Calm, cold. There's going to be a car accident. Karen sat up straight. Excuse me, can you tell me your name, sir? The voice didn't answer her question. It just repeated, slowly, like someone reading from a script. At 2:43 a.m., a car traveling west on Lincoln Highway will collide with a truck. 3 people will die. Karen blinked. Sir, I need you to explain. How do you know this? The line was quiet. Then the voice added, almost casually, because it's already happened. And then the call ended. Karen's hands shook as she checked the clock. It was 2:19 a.m. Whoever had just called gave her a time, 2:43 a.m. She stared at her screen, waiting for the system to log the number. But it didn't. Instead, the system registered it as coming from no source, no area code, no record, no way to call back. Still, Karen couldn't just ignore it. She radioed out a warning to patrol units near Lincoln Highway. Possible traffic hazard, she explained quickly, embarrassed at how paranoid she sounded. Just keep your eyes open. At exactly 2:43 a.m., multiple officers reported in. There had been a collision on Lincoln Highway. A sedan had crossed into the wrong lane and slammed head-on into a semi-truck. When emergency crews arrived, they confirmed the fatal count. 3 people dead, just like the caller said. Karen's blood went cold. She replayed the recording again and again, listening to the voice. It wasn't robotic, not distorted like a prank. It sounded human, male, but strangely detached, as if whoever spoke didn't care at all about what they were saying. Her supervisor reviewed the logs. There was no number, no trace. According to the system, the call technically didn't exist, but Karen had heard it, and the recording was real. 2 nights later, at 3:01 a.m., it happened again. Same deadline silence, same voice. This time, it said, "Tomorrow, a man will be found hanging in his garage. They will say it was suicide." It wasn't. Then it hung up. The next day, just after dawn, police were called to a home on the outskirts of town. A man was found dead in his garage, hanging from a beam. At first glance, it looked like suicide. But the medical examiner found signs that suggested otherwise. Bruising, struggle, defensive wounds. Just as the voice predicted, Karen couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. She started dreading every ring of the phone, terrified it would be him again. And each time he called, the pattern was the same. A calm voice, a specific prediction, and every single one came true. Sometimes it was an accident, sometimes a violent crime, sometimes a fire. Always death. And always, he ended the call with the same chilling phrase, "It's already happened." Attempts to trace the department escalated the situation to federal investigators. They combed through the recordings, searching for anything unusual. But there was nothing. The calls weren't coming from any traceable device, not even from a VoIP or scrambled signal. It was as though the calls were appearing directly inside the 911 system, like they weren't being made at all, just delivered. One night, Karen answered again. But this time, the voice didn't predict a random tragedy, it predicted hers. At 4:12 a.m., a woman will collapse at her desk inside the dispatch center. Heart failure. Karen froze. The clock read 3:59. Her co-workers noticed the color drain from her face. She told them, frantic, that she was the one. That the caller was talking about her. They called paramedics as a precaution. At 4:12 on the dot, Karen slumped forward, gasping. Her heart stopped. The medics managed to revive her, but only barely. She survived, yet in her mind, there was no doubt left. The caller wasn't warning anyone. The caller was deciding. After Karen's collapse, the strange 911 calls stopped. Just like that. No more predictions. No more warnings. Silence. But the recordings remained, archived deep in evidence logs. And every dispatcher who's ever heard them describes the same eerie feeling, that the voice isn't just predicting deaths, it's causing them. Choosing them, like a hand reaching out of the dark, plucking names from the living and dragging them away. Some say it was just a cruel prank, someone with inside knowledge of accidents before they hit the system. But that doesn't explain Karen's collapse. Others believe it was paranormal, a voice from outside of time itself, calling to announce tragedies before they unfolded. And the darkest theory of all, that the voice wasn't predicting the future at all. It was making it real, speaking death into existence. Karen eventually left her job. She moved away, started over, tried to forget. But she told one close friend that she still dreams about that voice. Not screaming. Not threatening, just whispering in her ear, calm and certain. It's already happened. And that concludes tonight's terrifying journey into the unknown. But remember, some calls never truly end. They echo, waiting to be answered again, maybe in the next story. If this video sent chills down your spine, don't stop here. Darkness always has another layer, and my other videos are waiting for you, each one holding secrets more disturbing than the last. Before you go, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon, so you'll never miss the next story that crawls out of the shadows. And I want to hear from you. Do you believe these calls were paranormal, or something far worse? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I read every single one. Until the next nightmare, keep your lights low, your doors locked, and your mind open, because the next call might be for you.